Hi, my name is Ashwin. So, this is the presentation for the assignment of ethical and whistleblowing, and I'll be presenting an analysis of ethical leadership and whistleblowing in three different countries. So, my student number is 100943427. So, since my last three digits are 427, my assigned three countries are Nigeria, Chile, and Sri Lanka. So, this presentation is part of my course on ethical leadership, and I hope to provide a comprehensive understanding of the topic. So, this presentation will cover the following topics. Firstly, I'll go with an introduction of what is whistleblowing and leadership. Then, I'll go with the whistleblowing laws in these countries, as in Nigeria, Chile, and Sri Lanka. After that, I'll I'll discuss some incidents, whistleblowing incidents that happened in these countries. Later on, I'll go to discuss some leadership profiles. From Nigeria, I've taken Zoki Okonjo-Iweala, and from Chile, I've taken Michelle Bachelet, and in Sri Lanka, I've taken Chandrika Kumaratunga. Later on, I'll again discuss something the relationship between whistleblowing and leadership. Later on, with a small conclusion, I'll conclude this whole presentation. So, each section will provide detailed insights into how whistleblowing is managed and its impact on leadership within these countries. So, to begin with, let's define whistleblowing. So, whistleblowing involves reporting unethical or illegal activities within an organization to external entities or authorities. So, it is a crucial mechanism for maintaining transparency and accountability in both public and private sectors. So whistleblowers plays a vital role in exposing wrongdoings that may otherwise remain hidden. So whistleblowing is important because it protects public interest by exposing corruption, fraud, and other malpractices. So it encourages ethical behavior, deters potential wrongdoers, enhances organizational integrity, and provides a voice to employees and stakeholders to report wrongdoings without fear or retaliation. So, for example, when employees see that wrongdoings are addressed, so it builds trust within the organization. So that is how whistleblowing. That is how we can define whistleblowing. So again, now let's explore the relationship between whistleblowing and leadership in a smaller way. Like ethical leadership supports and encourages whistleblowing as a means of ensuring accountability. So leaders play a vital role in establishing a culture that values transparency and ethical behavior. So effective leaders create safe environments where whistleblowers feel protected and valued. And the alignment between the leadership values and whistleblowing practices can significantly impact the effectiveness of whistleblowing mechanisms. So, in this case, for example, a leader who openly supports transparency and addresses issues brought up by whistleblowers can help foster an ethical organizational culture. So, let's discuss about the whistleblowing laws in three different countries. Now let's start with Nigeria, of course. The first law is the Whistleblower Protection Act, which is passed in 2016. So this law covers the government and commercial sectors. It provides protection and incentives for whistleblowers. The law is enforced by the Federal Ministry of Finance and has been effective in recovering misappropriated funds. So, for example, the law led to the recovery of millions of dollars in looted funds shortly after its implementation. However, it faces challenges in ensuring the protection of whistleblowers, as there have been reports of retaliation against individuals who have come forward. So, that is about the first law. And about the second law is the Public Interest Disclosure Bill passed in 2019. So this law covers public sector employees and provides legal protection against retaliation. And it is monitored by the National Assembly. The bill aims to create a safer environment for public servants to report misconduct without any fear of reprisal. However, its effectiveness is limited due to the enforcement challenges, including the lack of awareness about the law among employees and insufficient mechanisms to protect whistleblowers effectively. So that is about the whistleblowing laws in Nigeria. Now let's take a look at Chile. So the first law is law number 20,393, passed in 2010. So this is a very famous law, and the law covers corporate criminal liability and establishes compliance programs to protect whistleblowers. So it is enforced by the public prosecutor's office and has been effective in improving corporate governance. For example, the law has led to increased accountability among corporations and has encouraged the implementation of internal compliance programs to prevent misconducts in the country. So now let's discuss about the second law. The second law is the transparency law, which is passed in 2008. This is also a famous law. So this law covers government transparency and public access to information. It ensures protection for whistleblowers in the public sector and is enforced by the Transparency Council. The law has been effective in promoting transparency with many public institutions improving their information disclosure practices. However, it faces challenges in enforcement, such as delays in responding to information requests and resistance from some public officials. So, after we discussed about the laws in Chile, we can move on to Sri Lanka. So, in Sri Lanka, the first law is the Whistleblower Protection Act passed in 2014. So, this law covers government and public sector employees providing protection and anonymity for whistleblowers, and it is enforced by the Commission of Investigate Allegations of Bribery or Corruption, which is the CIABOC. So while the law is partially effective, it faces many implementation challenges, such as inadequate resources and political interference, which can undermine its effectiveness. As we know that Sri Lanka, with its political problems, issues all over the country, it faces so many problems in the initial days, and it is not in an uh, as in an effective way. So let's move on to the second law. The second law is the Right to Information Act passed in 2016. So this law covers public access to government information and protects individuals disclosing information in the public interest. It is monitored by the Right to Information Commission. The law has been effective in increasing transparency, with many citizens using it to obtain information about government activities. However, it faces bureaucratic resistance, and there have been instances where public officials have been reluctant to disclose information. These all comes with the government they are facing, the public sectors. Uh, pub, the public people are usually feel disrespected with the rules that are implemented by the government in Sri Lanka. After discussing about the whistleblowing laws in three different countries, next let's discuss a major whistleblowing incident in Nigeria, which is the minor pension scam. So the issue involved the embezzlement of pension funds meant for retired civil servants. Abdul Rashid Maina, the head of the President Task Force on Pension Reforms, was implicated for the scandal. So the whistleblower, an anonymous insider, revealed that Maina and his associates have siphoned off billions of naira from the pension fund. So the whistleblower faced significant risks, including threats and intimidation. Maina was dismissed from his position, but later controversially reinstated, causing public outrage. While there was partial recovery of funds and ongoing legal actions, the incident highlighted the need for stronger whistleblower protection. So it also underscored the importance of having robust mechanisms to address and prevent corruption. So this has been a very popular whistleblowing incident in Nigeria. Maina was convicted and he was gone to jail for this case after that. So after the whistleblowing incident, there has been many whistleblowing laws that have been issued as we discussed earlier. After discussing about the whistleblowing incident in Nigeria, let's move on to Chile. So in Chile, a significant whistleblowing incident was the La Pola financial scandal. La Pola, basically a major retail company, was found to have engaged in fraudulent accounting practices and misleading financial statements. So here what happened is the whistleblower, an internal auditor, exposed that company had been rescheduling customer debt without their knowledge, inflating its financial wealth health. So the whistleblower faced retaliation, including job loss and legal threats. So in response to the scandal, several executives resigned and legal proceedings were initiated against them. This incident led to improved corporate governance regulations in Chile, including uh, stricter financial reporting requirements and better protections for whistleblowers in the corporate sector. So, as we discussed about the laws which are earlier discussed, so these were implemented after these incidents. So after discussing the two whistleblowing incidents in Nigeria and Chile, now we can move on to Sri Lanka. So in Sri Lanka, the Avant Grande Maritime Services scandal stands out. As in, Avant Grande Maritime Services was involved in illegal arms trading and corruption. That's how it is stand. The whistleblower, a former employee, revealed that the company was operating an illegal floating armory and was involved in corrupt dealings with government officials. So this was the problem I was earlier said that the government officials are all also included in this scam. So the whistleblower faced significant threats and intimidation, including physical threats and legal harassments. So we can see in every aspect, in every incident, the whistleblowers have faced significant threats and intimidations. So later on, the investigations were launched, leading to some reforms and legal actions against those involved. Now, this incident raised awareness of corruption issues in Sri Lanka and highlighted the need for stronger whistleblower protections and anti-corruption measures. This enhances the protection laws to be active in this country. after the Whistleblower Protection Act was implemented, these illegal things were not only reduced, but also more and more political leaders were raised to rule Sri Lanka in a better way. Okay. So we discussed about the whistleblowing laws in three different countries, as in Nigeria, Chile, and Sri Lanka. After that, we discussed about whistleblowing incidents in these countries. Now we can move on to some leadership profiles. So for the first, now let's examine the leadership profile of a prominent leader from Nigeria, Gosi Okonjo-Iweala. So she has a vision for transparency and economic reform. She was Nigeria's finance minister. So as a Nigerian finance minister, she was instrumental in implementing policies aimed at reducing corruption and promoting economic stability. Her integrity is well known. She stood against corruption despite facing significant opposition and threats. So she sets a good example by leading initiatives such as the Treasury Single Account (TSA), which helped streamline government finances and reduce opportunities for corruption. Her clear goals focused on economic stability and growth, and she worked tirelessly to achieve them. Okojo Iweala encouraged others by advocating for ethical practices and transparency in government. She demanded accountability for promoting the implementation of the TSA, which is the Treasury Single Account, and other reforms that required transparency in financial dealings. She also challenged authority by taking a stand against powerful interests, including those within the government who were resistant to change. She also provided ethical guidance by consistently promoting ethical governance and transparency. Her internal locus of control showed confidence in her ethical stance, often making tough decisions that were in the best interest of the country. Lastly, her Machiavellianism was low. She focused on achieving ethical outcomes and demonstrated a commitment to doing what was right, even in the face of significant challenges. So we discussed all of these things as in her vision, which is in transparency and economic reform, her integrity stood against corruption, good example led by implementing anti-corruption measures, her clear goals, which is economic stability and growth, and how she encourages others, which is by advocated for ethical practices, and her accountability in demanded transparency and in government, and the challenges authority was to take a stand against powerful interests. Her ethical guidance was promoted ethical governance, and her internal locus of control was to confident in her ethical stance. And lastly, her Machiavellianism was low, focused on her ethical outcomes. So now let's take a look at the leadership profile from Chile. So I've taken Michelle Bachelet from Chile. So when we talk about her profile, Michelle Bachelet was born in September 29th, 1951, and she was a Chilean politician who served as United Nations High Commission for Human Rights from 2018 to 2022. She previously served as President of Chile from 2006 to 2010 and from 2014 to 2018 for the Socialist Party of Chile. and she is the first woman to hold the Chilean presidency. After leaving the presidency in 2010 and before becoming eligible for re-election, she was appointed as the first executive director of the newly established UN entity for gender equality and the empowerment of women. In December 2013, Bachelet was re-elected with over 62% of the vote, surpassing the 54% she received in 2006. She was the first president of Chile to be re-elected since 1932. Bachelet, a physician who has studied the military strategy at the university level, previously served as the health minister and defense minister under her predecessor Ricardo Lagos. She is a separated mother of three and identifies as an agnostic. In addition to her native Spanish, she speaks English fluently and has some proficiency in German, French, and Portuguese. So this is her profile. So Michelle Bachelet's vision includes social equality and human rights. So as Chile's first female president, she focused on reducing inequality and improving social welfare. Her integrity was reflected in her efforts to address social issues and promote human rights. So she set a good example by advocating for gender equality and implementing policies to support women and minorities. Her clear goals involved social reform, including improvement in healthcare, education, and social security. She worked towards these goals with determination and resilience. Bachelet encouraged others by empowering women and minorities, providing them with opportunities to succeed. She ensured accountability through transparent governance, making efforts to combat corruption and improve government transparency. She challenged authority by pushing for progressive policies even when facing opposition from conservative groups. She even provided ethical guidance as a human rights advocate. She consistently promoting justice and fairness. Her internal locus of control demonstrated a strong personal conviction, enabling her to make tough decisions based on her principles. And lastly, her Machiavellianism was moderate. She showed pragmatic in achieving her goals but remained committed to her ethical standards. So these are the profile and these are the uh, leadership things that Michelle Bachelet that I captured. So lastly, let's examine Chandrika Kumaratunga from Sri Lanka. So when we are looking at her profile, she is commonly referred to her initials CBK. She's a Sri Lankan politician who served as the fourth executive president of Sri Lanka from 12 November 1994 to 19 November 2005. She previously served as the Prime Minister from August to November 1994 and the Chief Minister of the Western Province from 1993 to 1994. She is the country's first and only female president to date and the country's second female prime minister. She was the leader of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party until the end of 2005. So she was elected as president in 1994 when she defeated the UNP candidate Srima Tisanayake in largest landslide victory in Sri Lankan history, winning 62% of the total votes cast. So let's have a look at her implementations. So CBK's vision is centered on peace and reconciliation. As a president of Sri Lanka, she played a crucial role in the country's post-war recovery and efforts towards national unity. Her integrity is shown through her anti-corruption efforts and commitment to democratic values. She set a good example by leading efforts for national unity and reconciliation, advocating for peace and justice. Her clear goals focused on post-war recovery, economic development, and social reform. She worked tirelessly to achieve these goals despite facing significant challenges. CBK encouraged others by advocating for democratic values and promoting transparency. She even ensured accountability by instituting transparency measures and combating corruption within the government. She challenged authority by confronting military influence and pushing for democratic reforms. Also, she provided ethical guidance by promoting justice and fairness, consistently advocating for the rights of all citizens. Her internal locus of control reflected strong personal conviction, enabling her to make tough decisions based on her principles. Her Machiavellianism is also low as compared to the leader that we discussed in Nigeria. So, emphasizing ethical leadership and a commitment to doing what was right. So, we discussed all of the things. Whistleblowing laws in three different countries: Nigeria, Chile, and Sri Lanka. Whistleblowing incidents in three countries, and scams and scandals. We discussed about that. And after that, we also discussed about the uh, leadership profiles in these three countries, which is in Nigeria, Chile, and Sri Lanka. Now, before going into the conclusion, we can discuss something about the relationship between whistleblowing and leadership. Initially, we talked about this, but now we can discuss about this in a broader way. So now let's discuss the relationship between whistleblowing and leadership. Whistleblowing can be seen as a form of leadership. It involves having a vision for ethical organizations, maintaining high moral standards, and serving as a role models for others. Whistleblowers and leaders both enforce accountability and take risk for the greater good. For example, a whistleblower exposes corruption within an organization, demonstrates a commitment to integrity and ethical behavior, similar to a leader who enforces ethical standards. So these are similarities between whistleblowing and leadership, such as ethical guidance, transparency, and influence on organizational culture. So both roles involve taking a stand against unethical behavior and promoting a culture of integrity. However, there are also differences, including position, approach to change, and support systems. So while leaders often have formal authority and resources to implement changes, whistleblowers typically act from within and may lack the same level of support. So despite these differences, whistleblowers and leaders play complementary roles. Leaders can support whistleblowers by creating safe environments and implementing policies that protect them. Whistleblowers can also challenge unethical behavior, contributing to overall organizational integrity. Together, they can foster a culture of transparency and accountability, essential for the long term success and ethical standards of any organization. So, this is basically my point of view where whistleblowing and leadership occurs. These are the differences in my POV on the whistleblowing and leadership and how they are connected, how how they follows as a leadership quality. Is that a good thing? Uh is that what we need to do? So basically, in my view, whistleblowing can threaten a person as we discussed so many incidents before. Like it may threatens or creates a problem within an organization if we whistleblows it. So if we found an unethical behavior in an organization or in a certain group of things, we can make, as my view, I would not accept the fact that they are doing an unethical behavior. Rather than initially, I would speak to them with that you are creating an unethical issue that I'm not accepting it, or I'm not, uh, I cannot support you for doing that. Uh, After that, only I can move on to whistleblowing or to a whistleblowers and expose it to every public or anything. So move on to the conclusion. In conclusion, so we have discussed the importance of whistleblowing and ethical leadership in Nigeria, Chile, and Sri Lanka. We explored the whistleblowing laws and significant incidents in each country and examined the leadership profiles of prominent leaders. Whistleblowing and leadership are interconnected and both are crucial for maintaining transparency, accountability, and ethical practices in organizations. By understanding the relationship between whistleblowing and leadership, we can better appreciate the role that both play in promoting ethical behavior and improving organizational culture. So that's how my point of view thinks in this topic. So I hope this presentation has provided valuable insights into the relationship between whistleblowing and leadership. Thank you so much.